Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Tracy.
And you can follow us on social media. If you go to Instagram, search Fancounters Live. And we are also on Facebook. That's where our big group is. There's over 25,000 people that have signed up to follow our updates. If you search Fancounters on Facebook, that's where we are. And then we have a private Facebook group called Sharpie Nation. So go ahead and join in those spots. We're glad to have you along for the podcast. We release an episode every single Friday on podcast apps all around the internet, as well as on YouTube with this very special video podcast. Now, this is our very first one we're airing.
Yeah.
But it's the second one we taped.
Very true.
So we're a little out of order. Next week, you'll see our very first podcast that's a video. And if you're listening to the audio, you can go to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's called Fancounters Podcast. And you'll be able to see the video to this interview with... I almost
slipped.
I almost slipped and let the cat out of the bag. Because I have to say happy Valentine's Day. It's Valentine's Day weekend, and we have a very special Valentine for you. His name is Scott Valentine, and he starred in the hit 80s television show Family Ties.
Love that show.
Yeah.
Love that show.
You know, and I asked him about my favorite Family Ties episode, which was probably one of the more serious ones.
Yeah.
But you watched a lot of Family Ties leading up to this interview to kind of refresh your memory on who he was. Yeah. He was Nick Moore, the boyfriend of Mallory Keaton, played by Justine Bateman.
And what's funny is, you know, I'm wearing my motorcycle jacket and my motorcycle hat. And
is that in honor of Scott?
It was. It was, because, you know, Scott's very first episode, what did he pull up in Family Ties and on a motorcycle?
That's right. My favorite line, Stephen Keaton, "Oh my gosh, you brought home Rambo." So funny. Scott's a talent. He's been in multiple television shows and movies, and he's going to tell us all about that, including the time he died.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get to talk about when they die.
That's crazy. I mean, just what he said about that.
You know, he's talked about the fact that he got hit by a truck almost on every podcast he's been on, but I've never heard him go this deep with the conversation and tell all of the stuff he's going to tell you today. So we're going to stop talking, and we are going to welcome right now from Family Ties and multiple other projects. This is Scott Valentine. Scott Valentine, welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you decided to join us to talk a little Family Ties today. It's a topic that I've got a lot of questions about, and we'll just jump right in. So
Beautiful.
Your single-syllable character is one of the most loved of the series. I think it provided that comedic relief that the show already had, but it really accelerated the funny of the show. But you didn't arrive until season 4, so I'm assuming you had watched the show prior, right?
No, I didn't.
What? You didn't watch Family Ties before?
No, I was a dyed-in-the-wool true thespian. I was a tragedian. I wasn't an actor. I was a guy that wanted to do nothing but plays, living in New York City, doing Moliere and Odette's and Congreve and Wycherley, and wanted to be very prestigious. You know what I mean? Then I had the misfortune of getting into an argument with a truck driver, who then proceeded to run me over, hit me, run over, dragged. Got laid up for a couple of years. And after I had some fake parts put in, tried to get jobs again in New York City. And that culminated with it was a movie with Robbie Benson and Paul Newman playing Robbie Benson's buddy. And going through, the casting director, the assistant character, and doing the 5 to 10 auditions to get down to me and one other guy. And that final audition, the casting director, which I don't know why she did it at that time. At the end, the producer and the director, and you never know if they're full of malarkey or if they're telling you the truth. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Really love you coming in. And the casting director said, didn't you have an accident? Aren't you made of fake parts? I'm like, excuse me? We all have accidents. With your hip, isn't there? I'm like, yes, I'm a hip guy. I'm a very hip guy. No, you've got fake parts. You're like a tinker toy. You're going to fall apart on the set. We can't hire him. And I jumped up on the coffee table and started doing like, hey, I'm cool. I got it. No problem. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought, well, I've got to leave here and go to LA where nobody knows about this. Went to LA. Didn't watch TV at all at that time in my life.
Wow.
Not at all. I think I may have owned like a ratty, remember the 9-inch black and white that your mom and dad gave you for Christmas when you were like 12?
Yeah.
And
it weighed about 20 pounds.
Yeah. Went to LA. Had the same agent in LA that I had in New York who loved me dearly, who stuck by me like family, and just kept sending me out. And after 10 months, I had an audition for a sitcom. I'm like, whatever, because I had to become bankable. I knew I had to have value so they would overlook the accident and the fake parts that I have, the prostheses. And had this audition for a sitcom and whatever. And I went in, I met Gary Goldberg and Alan Huger, and the other writers were in the room. And Gary Goldberg's office used to be Lucille Ball's dressing room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was super cool.
It's a cool office.
And Gary, was a fellow New Yorker, I believe from the Bronx, maybe Brooklyn, was a former jock, and we hit it off. And Alan Huger, the guy who had created my character, Alan was a dentist prior to becoming a writer-producer on Family Ties, and was buddies with Gary, and Gary brought him in. And we just hit it off. And obviously I did something right for them to want to engage. So I had not watched the show.
Blows my first question, sort of. Let me just still ask it. The first time you walk onto that set, it's different than the theater set. So tell me a little bit about like your thoughts and feelings of just like, wow, this is, a new experience. It's something new, and there is something iconic about that house.
It was weird, because every set, you guys know it. Tracy's an engineer. I'm sure he goes from his company works with other companies on a continuous basis. So you're always meeting new people. And you walk into that environment going, am I going to get along with these folks? Are they going to be knuckleheads? Are they going to be good folks? And walking onto, I think it was stage 24 in the Paramount lot, you went in through sort of a big garage door where trucks would back in to unload props or equipment or whatever. And you went through that to a support stage. And then through the support stage, there was a big fire door. And as I opened it, a lot of folks had already sat down at the table because every day started with a table read. Read the new script, read the new rewrites from the night before. And there was all this hubbub over there going on. And it was a little daunting. It was kind of like, am I going to be liked? I was only supposed to be there for one episode. So it was like, I wanted to do a good job, be liked. And immediately everybody from Michael Fox to Meredith Baxter Burney, Justine, Tina Yothers, the writer, producers, Alan, Gary, were very embracing, and it was very family-esque. And I used to joke with Gary Goldberg before he died about how you really set me up. You made me think everybody in Hollywood was this nice and this gracious and this beneficent, and wasn't that way,
Well, that kind of leads into the next question, I guess, doesn't it? Initially, you were just a guest spot, being there for a week or so and then gone. But instead of an episode, it turned out into multiple seasons. Was there a conversation with you that you remember when the producers told you they wanted you to be a regular on the show?
Yes, very distinctly. The stage was very much like a proscenium stage, like a normal theater. And the seats went up, they were raked. And below that area where the seats were where the principal cast, where their dressing rooms were, and the makeup room and the hair room. And the peons like me, our makeup and hair was done in like a little hallway that was in that area. The principal room was saved for the stars and the main makeup folks. And I remember sitting there, and there's just all this, it's the first show that I'm going to tape, all this hubbub going on, and all these people passing back and forth, and you're just trying to get in your head and get in yourself and be in your body, be in your instrument, so you can do your work. And Gary Goldberg coming up and grabbing my arm on this side and like, hey, how are you? What's going on? You feel okay? You feel good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm cool, man. Because he was like, he was the grand fromage. He was the king. And he's like, look, me and the other writers, we've been talking, and we kind of like having you around, and you're not a bad guy. So, after this, would you like to come back and maybe do a couple more? I'm like, yeah, sure, cool, all right, great. So that was that talk. It was very casual, very sort of took maybe 3 minutes, and which led to the date that wouldn't leave.
Well, we're thankful for that. Now, if I've done my math right, you were about 27 when you started on the show. Justine Bateman was 19. Was it kind of weird to be her love interest with that big age gap?
Yeah. Yes, it was, Nick. Thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, look, I'm 62 now. I don't look 62, and I know that's egotistical to say. But at 27, I guess I didn't look 27. Maybe I looked 22
or
whatever. Mm-hmm. But still, it bordered on me. Could it be a little bit creepy? Because I'm this older guy dating this younger girl, and I have my own sort of standards and beliefs in that. My fiance now is a little bit younger than me. When I met her, I was talking to her, and I learned what her age was when we were just starting to date. And I said, I've got this 5-year rule. She's like, what's that? I said, well, I don't date anybody, or I can't have a relationship with anybody that's 5 years beyond either side of me.
Sure.
And she immediately said, that's stupid. I'm not going to tell you how much younger she is than me, but it was the first time ever that I had dated and we're going to get married, that I have been with somebody that there's that large of an age separation. So with Justine, I perpetually felt, is Nick this loser that can't get a date with somebody that's his peer?
Age? Yeah.
But that was in my own mind. And really the audience, I guess their perception was that Nick and Mallory were I hope, within a couple of years of each other.
Well, so you don't feel bad, my wife is a lot younger than me too, Scott.
You're creepy, Tracy.
She's beyond
and that's the end of this call.
She's beyond the 5 year. Yeah, she's beyond the 5 year standard you have.
Yeah.
You didn't have to.
My honey Jennifer is beyond that 5 year span by a multiplier that I won't say. Okay.
Okay.
So suffice to say, you never dated Justine in real life. These co-stars did not fall for each other.
No. That's in my book. That's like rule number one. You don't dance where you eat, shall we say?
Sure.
I had learned that early on in college. One of the first plays I ever did, and there was a young lady in the play with me, and she and I got amorous, and all of a sudden after we got amorous, things kind of twisted and got a little bit ugly.
Ooh.
I'm like, well, I'll never do this again.
Yeah.
And never ever with anybody I ever worked with. Never. It's a rule. Can't break that rule.
I just want to ask you about my favorite Family Ties episode. It was one episode called My Name is Alex. It was dealt with the loss of Alex's friend, and it explored him masking and ultimately exposing some very emotional times because he was supposed to be with this friend that died. Do you have any memories of that episode? I mean, it was a very different one because there weren't a lot of laughs in that one. But you appeared in it with your normal So, you broke up that seriousness.
The monosyllabic grunt was there.
What do you remember from that episode?
I thought it was rather bold of them, and them being, once again, Gary and Alan and the writers, the studio, the network, because Gary had gone and asked Brandon Tartikoff. If you remember, there were no commercials.
I didn't remember that, but
it was an hour episode, and I think in maybe the second half hour there were no commercials. And it was an hour episode, and it was really, I think, a thing that has made Family Ties enduring. Remember, the last episode we taped was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And shows, and this is so, I don't want to be, I didn't write them. I was very lucky to be a part of an extremely successful machine. Shows like All in the Family, we remember, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore's show. They go beyond just a laugh, a hoot, and they bring something relevant that you can take with you and go, wow, life is. So I was very appreciative, because back in my days in New York as a tragedian, as a thespian, a thing that really impressed me as a young man was how playwrights would take society and societal mores and practices and hold up a mirror and go, look at how we are, look at what we do, look at this. And really that was in a sitcom setting, an ability to show this is how we deal with death, this is how we deal with separation, this is how we deal with mourning. So I thought it was pretty gosh darn cool.
I thought so too. It's one that's etched in my mind.
Pardon me?
Oh, it's an episode that has stayed etched in my mind.
It was, you don't see many like that. It's obviously, it's very special, very special. Yeah.
So Nick's style has always been etched in my mind. From your earring to your leather jacket, it was mildly reminiscent of the Fonz on Happy Days. Did you have any say on your character's appearance, on how Nick acted?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, laddie. That was another great thing with Gary and Alan. They said, be creative, go with it. What do you have? I don't know how the other guys did the material for the audition. We go back to Lucille's dressing room.
Right.
But I had friends. Remember, Nick made art out of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I had two friends that we would go through New York City scrounging for great pieces to turn into art in garbage piles. Claude Pia and Melissa Ackerman. And so when I got the material, it was very, something germane to me, something that I could relate to. And not so much, and yes, he was sort of the Fonzie of the 80s. And Henry Winkler, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet him, is just a consummate gentleman, just a true sweetheart, just a great guy. Very great. Very, very lucky to have met him and chatted with him several times and sharing a little bit of his wisdom with me. But remember in the first episode, there was the line where Mr. Keaton said, "Oh my God, Elise, our daughter's dating Rambo." And so I thought to take Sylvester Stallone's speech rhythm, and you can tell me talking now, I don't talk like Nick.
Right.
To adapt a rhythm, a regionalism that was germane to that was important. And then the wardrobe, they had the whole idea of the leather jacket and the boots and all that. And they'd ask me at one point, would you get your ear pierced? I'm like, I'll get them both pierced. Let's do a hole right up here. And I wanted Nick to be so bold with his attire that it was so the antithesis of what the perceived norm was, where it was like it was acceptable that this was his norm, his yada yada. One of my favorite shirts wearing on that show, which I still have to this day, was my shirt from Monty Python's Flying Circus. I don't know if you remember that episode.
Oh, wow.
But I still have that shirt from the 70s. Nick's too young. He won't remember, okay?
I don't remember that episode.
Do you still have the leather jacket?
Yes, sir.
Very cool.
I can go get it for you. It's in the closet. Yeah. If you go on my Facebook page, you can see there's a couple of shots of my honey, Jennifer, wearing it, of our niece, Caitlin, wearing it. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's living and breathing, baby.
Good.
And let's talk about that art that Nick made. Did you, when you had downtime, were you making those pieces? Obviously, prop people probably did, but did you have a hand in any of it?
No, I didn't have a say in that. There was a guy, the woman who was I'm not sure if her title was line producer, but on a movie would be like the line producer, the actual physical producer that made sure, that oversaw everything of the physical, technical elements being executed.
Okay.
And her husband was an artist. I don't know if you ever saw, there was a pilot, one of the pilots, a spinoff from Nick was called The Art of Being Nick. And the same guy did Nick portraits, one in a Monet style, one in a Picasso style, one in Rembrandt style, and some what's his name? The guy soup cans. The artist.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't think of the guy's name though.
White hair, big glasses.
Andy.
Okay.
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol.
Yes,
Yeah,
here we
there
go.
was it.
We got
Winner,
it.
we have a winner.
Together, we got this.
I couldn't think of his last name.
That art I didn't have a say in, but the woman who was the line producer, her husband made a lot of it, and he was a real artist, and he came up with some great stuff. I gotta hand it to him. Yeah.
It's funny how you segue for us, because I was going to go into your TV pilots that were a spinoff of the character Nick. You'd think third time was a charm, but that's not the way it worked out for you. But you did get to do a pilot with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who went on to Seinfeld fame. And I have to think that she is probably happy that your show did not take off, because she might have missed the Seinfeld boat. What do you think about working with her and seeing where she has gone?
I would, there's an expression, I don't know if you know, have ever heard it, know what it means. I would stretch canvas for her.
Oh.
Have you ever heard that? Do you know what it means?
I've never heard that before.
No, but I'm sure. Go ahead and tell us.
For people who paint oils, acrylics, it's important to have a nice piece of canvas to do your work on. But it's very difficult to get that canvas on a frame and have it stretched so taut, like a drum skin, that it makes a perfect palette to paint on. So it's not a fun. It's like saying I'd clean toilets for you.
I figured.
That's why I
She was just a sweetheart, funny, intelligent, benevolent, just an number one individual. There's a lot of folks in Hollywood that have been lucky enough to get accolades and a lot of money from pretending to be somebody else. And some of those folks are not so gracious. Julia, quite the contrary. I mean, she went on from Seinfeld to Veep to, I can't think of the other shows that she's done, but her kids used to play ball with my kids over at the local park where we all lived over in sort of bourgeois land. And her husband, Brad Hall, is just a sweetheart, just a quality individual. Loved her.
Do you know if she really knows how to dance or not?
Pardon me?
Do you know if she really knows how to dance or not? I'm referring to her Seinfeld days.
Seinfeld episode? Yeah, loved that. I mean, she's just, she could sit and read the New York white pages out of the phone book and be funny. She's that kind of person. And that's somebody, you, as an actor, you're very lucky to work with.
Yeah. So Justine Bateman said her fame made her miserable. How did your recognizable role treat you out in public?
I kind of got to agree with Justine in a way. The irony is you do this for the public to see. I mean, going back to my hold a mirror up to society and look at what we are, whether that's a comedic representation or a dramatic or a tragic. The first time I had an episode air and the next day when I went out in public, the assaulting that I received was just astonishing. I was not prepared at all. Wow. And the accolades. And then as that went further, and the character in the show, not me, but the character caught on more and more. Mm-hmm. Having women show up naked at your hotel room, having women run up to your car and rip their shirt open and say, take me.
Wow.
Having one time I remember my ex-wife and I were traveling and we were changing planes, I think in Chicago, and going from, one terminal to the next. And just the throngs of humanity assaulting you. And they were back in the day when they would hold the plane for you because our arriving flight was delayed and transitioning.
Okay.
So they're holding the flight and we're sprinting to get to the gate. Got two young guys, stroller, breast pump, diaper bag. And as we get to the gate, my second son, Shaler, who was maybe about a year at the time, decides, I'm going to pass my fecal matter into my diaper. I don't know if you guys have kids and if you've ever changed diaper, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this was full on, like you knew this was a winner. And as I got to the gate, I said to the gate attendant, he just pooped in his diaper, and I really don't want to go on the plane and make everybody else suffer and smell that. Do I have give me 2 minutes? Let me change his diaper right here. My wife will go on and get, our first son settled and all that, and get me settled. Just give me a minute. And she's like, yeah, go ahead. So as I'm there trying to change his diaper, literally more and more people are like crushing in and give me sign this and sign that. And I'm like, please. And I'm a very docile guy. I'm very friendly. I realize I know where my bread is buttered.
Right.
Those fans that come up and want that autograph, that's my paycheck. That's any actor, any athlete that's like Mr. Superstar athlete, that's your paycheck. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're LeBron James, if you're Jerry Seinfeld, you're Tom Cruise. That's your paycheck. But there's got to be a certain, let me change my kid's diaper. What do you want me to do? Sign this with fecal matter?
Yeah.
So there's that. There's where you can't go out shopping without having people. And it's kind of, I dropped out of Hollywood. I started producing in 95. I got totally fed up with Hollywood around 03 when I was producing. My last production deal was at Madonna's company, and that was just a bastion of ineptitude and dysfunctionality and lies and nefarious activity. And part of it was nice to get out and have that anonymity when you go to the store. It's nice to be able to go and check are these good cucumbers or bad? And do I want to buy these Brussels sprouts or not? So people just don't know boundaries. And yes, that's your paycheck, but there's that.
There has to be a balance between private life and, spending your time with your fans type of thing. There's got to be a line that doesn't get crossed,
But I realize too, I'm always amazed by actors like, don't take my picture. Dude, that's what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah.
If you don't want people taking your picture and coming up to you wherever, then go do community theater and do a play for squirrels in the woods. So,
or disguise yourself when you're out in public.
Yeah. You guys want some oatmeal? This is yummy.
It's got to be cold by now, but all right, you're doing all right. We always ask on Fan Counters, it's kind of the hook of the show is to ask about, your encounters with your fans, and you've kind of given us that a little bit. So I'm going to turn the question just a little bit around and put it, you just talked about your experience with your wife, your first wife, that she had to deal with people coming up to you as well. Did that cause strain in the marriage to the point where it was conflict with you at home because of what would happen when you went out? I mean, that had to be very difficult.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, come on, to be on vacation and to get at 3 a.m. at our hotel room and there's some woman there naked going, "Hi, take me." And it's like,
Seriously?
What is she doing here?
3 a.m?
2, 3, happened several times.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there was my ex-wife, she was an aspiring actress. She never was lucky enough to reach a level that I did. And not like, I'm better. It's just, timing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, and there was a bit of envy and a bit of, why don't I have? Why can't I? So it did create discord.
Gotcha. And after Family Ties ended, how long did it really take you to shake that Nick Moore stereotype, or are people still walking in your office going, "Hey"?
They're still walking in the office going, "Hey."
Then it didn't go away.
And when I stopped Family Ties, after the foible, which I didn't finish telling, there was a true succession of unfortunate events around that pilot I did with Julia. I am a learned, trained actor. I didn't go to Hollywood and get lucky and here's my picture. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I graduated there, top of my class. When I left there, I went and worked at the Actors Studio in class with Al Pacino, Elia Kazan. I took the art very seriously and had a very reverential disposition with regard to it. So I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to do things that, I didn't want to be the monosyllabic idiot.
Yeah.
As much as that created a wonderful life for me, it paid me a lot of money. I think I mishandled the opportunities it presented to me. I was naive and ignorant to things that were available to me. I wished, as much as I refer to the agent that stuck by me like blood, he never had a client that reached that level. So I don't think he had an acumen with regard to how to handle it.
Wow.
I had a manager when I got on the show, was a guy who, one of his clients was Johnny Travolta, sweetheart of a guy. Johnny's just a great guy, great human being. And there were some other very super famous people that this manager had, Bob Lamont, but Bob died the first year I was on the show. So I have a feeling if he had lived, he would have given me much more sagely advice. He probably would have said, "No, you're not doing My Demon Lover." Not a good choice, you know. So there are, looking back, other choices. There were, I wanted to play, you know, the attorney, the architect, the doctor, the whatever character. I wanted to get out of that saran wrap of that character. But you look at people like Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood essentially plays the same character each and every time he does a movie. If you go back to the spaghetti westerns, he played that roguish single man who rose against the tide to help the underdog. Every movie that he's ever produced or directed has that theme running through it. Who else to cite? Tom Cruise, what Tom Cruise does. Very nice guy, very successful at what he's done, but essentially it's the same character every time. And handling that, there's an art to that. But looking at a career of somebody like Philip Seymour Hoffman, to me, is much more enticing than a career of playing the same thing over and over and over and over, regardless of the financial rewards. And Philip Seymour Hoffman was an extremely talented person. Never met him, never worked with him, wished I had the opportunity. But somebody like that is really, you know, that was more my aspirations than to keep doing the same thing over and over. And as a result, you sort of alienate your audience. You know, when you went to a Jim Carrey movie, remember when he did that movie, I don't know, it was a serious drama. And I remember going to see it, and I'm like, hey, where's the jokes? Where's the laughs?
Right.
Where's the funny? I want Jim Carrey, funny, goofy guy. I don't want Jim Carrey playing a tragedy and being lovelorn. So, again, there's that balance as American actors. In Europe, they're much more accepting having actors play various roles that are not germane to that same core element.
Okay. So 10 months before Family Ties, you were standing on a street corner and you had an altercation with a truck driver, which led to you actually dying. What were you arguing with him about, and how did things escalate where you were run over?
You did your homework, didn't you, laddie?
We felt like you told the story a lot, but you never said what the argument was about. It's like, seems like the obvious question no one asks.
It was 4:30 in the afternoon on September 17th, Thursday, and I was riding my bicycle from the West Village in Manhattan up to 57th Street where my agent was. I had been offered a soap opera and a part in a movie, Lords of Discipline. Frank Rodham was the director, from guy who directed Quadrophenia. And I wanted to do the movie. My agent wanted me to do the soap opera. He wanted the 3-year contract. I wanted the cool, I'm a thespian thing, you know. And when I got to the corner of 8th and 42nd, the light had turned red. There's first lane, second lane. I'm here between the second and the third lane, and to my right is a truck. And crossing from the east side of 8th Avenue to the west side was a young woman with a baby in a stroller and a little girl on her left hand. And you guys have been to Manhattan, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yep.
You know, traffic's pretty crazy. Rush hour is pretty crazy. The Port Authority is right over there. Times Square is another block over there. So it's pretty busy, pretty hectic. And as she's crossing, when she got in front of the truck, the guy popped the clutch to make the truck jerk forward.
Oh.
Now, I used to work on road construction as a kid. My father did heavy road construction. It was the grand fromage on those jobs, and I got nice jobs in that. The truck was a Ford. I knew the sound of the transmission from a lot of Ford 10-wheelers being on the road, on the work site. And I knew he had popped the clutch. And the woman screamed. And the little girl screamed. The baby started screaming. And she had to stop to gather all this shit. You know, her life, her kids, her children. And I'm sorry, I watch my mouth because it still bothers me.
Yeah.
These guys started laughing. There were 3 guys in the cab.
Oh.
They started laughing and pointing at her. And I turned and I gave him my best FU look.
Yeah.
And he caught me looking at him and he said, "What's your effing problem?" And I said, "What's my effing problem? What's your effing problem?" And he said, "F you." And I'm like, typical New York, F you. And I said, "Oh yeah, you're a big man. Big man. You're going to run over a woman and her kids." And then he said, "F you, honky." And I said, you know, I've had black friends all my life. I grew up in the projects initially. You know, I mean, literally a lot of African-American friends. And I turned to him, I said, "You know, your problem is you're pissed off that you're black. That's what your problem is." And you're angry at the world. And actually, he had gone to jail, got out of jail, was drunk at the time. And he started for his door and he said, "You know, F you, I'm going to kick your ba-boom, ba-boom." And I was like, "Screw you." And the light turned green. And at the time, I was running 8 miles a day. Used to love to run. I don't know if you guys ever did running, any sort of aerobic thing like that. It's really cool because you...
I was like, look at us. Do you think we run?
Look at us. What do you think? Huh? What are you talking about? Come on, Valentine. And there's a high you get from it. It's the best high, one of the best highs ever. It's all natural. Whatever made it so when you hit that anaerobic state, you've got whatever endorphins going through your body. And I think some of my clearest thinking, my most crystal clear thinking would happen when I would hit that state.
Sure.
Okay.
So in my mind, you know, I'm 23. You remember being 23? You thought you were Superman.
Yeah.
Thought you were titanium coated. And I thought, I'll beat it. I should have turned left and gone west on 42nd, but I went straight. In the truck, I didn't think, he can't catch me. Got in between 42nd and 43rd, got rammed from behind. Did you ever play football?
Yep.
Did you ever get clipped? You know, that's when they...
Yes.
Felt just like that.
Ooh.
On my bike. It hit. I was like, and I went up and then down. The front tire ran over me, and the back tires came up and wedged me between them and the ground, and pushed me. It didn't really drag me. Pushed me with the tire on me. And the son of a gun, once again, clutch went in. He downshifted to try to get more torque to get over me.
Oh my God!
Thank God, some guy who was a nickel and dime bag seller, because I was a pretty seedy part of Manhattan at that time, heard me screaming and literally ran and jumped on the running board and told the guy, you know, there's a guy under your tire. He's kind of stuck there. You may want to stop. And started punching the driver to get him to stop.
Wow.
So they stopped. The guy came back. The guy who got him to stop came back to me, had a thick Puerto Rican accent. And like, "Okay, man, what you want, man?" And I'm like, "Could you get him just back the truck off of me?" You know, and he went up, and then the wheels went off of me, and the guy came back, and he's like, and I'm like, "Just let me hold your hand. Let me hold your hand." My left leg had wound up in the middle of my back here, and my pelvis was in 32 pieces.
Jeez.
I was paralyzed from the waist down. They took me to St. Clair's Hospital, which has since been torn down, and I died in the emergency room. And they brought me back. That was pretty cool dying. It was
I've got a question about that.
Yeah.
Well, just
let's switch to something happy.
Was that happy? No, but we've heard people that have died experience part of crossing over and have memories of being dead. Do you? I've always wanted to ask you, do you have memories of being dead?
Yeah.
Do tell.
Oh, yeah. I literally felt like I was being pulled up from here, like if you could imagine falling up.
Okay.
And my arms and legs were behind me, and there was like some big like, I don't know, like golden, whatever, like some huge pipe or hose attached to me, pulling me up. I was in no pain. It was all golden and like wet and gooey, and just felt like I was going up. And I remember turning and looking over my shoulder and seeing myself on the table.
Wow.
Really?
In the emergency room, and seeing all this work going on around my body. And I kept going up. And I think that maybe, when we sort of decide, do we want to stay or leave? And you say, when people get shot, they can see and things start flashing. And I don't know if there's a conscious choice of like, well, do I want to let go and go wherever that is? Or do I want to stay here and be in pain? And I remember just wanting to go more and more up, because I was in a lot of pain there on the table.
I can imagine.
And they were doing the paddles, and and then all of a sudden I went from floating and feeling warm and gooey and wonderful to boom, I'm back in my body and this unbelievable pain. So
wow,
that's crazy.
My life didn't flash before me. I didn't have little snippets of when Mark Winslow kicked my butt when we were kids over at the recreation field.
I've heard you talk about this moment in your life before on other interviews, but you also don't mention the support system that you had that got you through that. Who was there for you? Who helped you heal? I mean, were your parents around?
My mom and dad.
Yeah.
My mom and dad. I was in Manhattan. I grew up in Saratoga Springs, which is about 3.5 hours north of Manhattan. And they came down to the hospital when I was in ICU for about 2 weeks. And my siblings came. It was sort of a blur, and there was other folks. But I remember two friends very distinctly coming. One is a guy, Ron Hazard, who now lives up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We went to community college together at Adirondack Community College. And the other guy was Joe Belair, who went to Adirondack Community College. The three of us used to hang out. Joe was a great basketball player. Ron was a great musician, wanted to be an actor as well. We lived together in New York for a period of time. We lived together actually initially when we moved from upstate New York down to Brooklyn. We lived in an apartment together in Brooklyn that eventually we moved out because a heroin addict broke in and stabbed one of our roommates. And went from being a fun, frilly place to like, man, this is a bad vibe. Maybe we should move.
Yeah.
Coming home one day and opening the door and walking through the hallway and getting to the living room and seeing blood over here, blood over there, and then blood into the bathroom and blood into the kitchen. This guy who was a heroin addict came in through the bathroom window, protected by a silver spoon. Joey came a few times. Joey still lived upstate New York, but Ron would come almost every other day and massage my legs and bend my legs. And I truly attribute that. And another thing I used to do with a sheet, I used to take a sheet and twine it like a rope and lasso my feet, and I would just pull my feet, boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
Reading and thinking, they said they believed that the nerve was torn but not severed. And I thought if I did enough stimulation that it would come back together, and eventually it did. I'll never forget Dr. David Fleiss when he came in. This is the guy who saved my life. When he came in one day, and I'm still in traction, I got both my legs hooked up to, cables and pulleys and weights and all that. And him coming in doing that thing where they poke your legs with a little pin to see if you feel it.
Right.
And initially, I started to feel it on my right leg. And I was like, I feel that. I do. I feel it. He's like, no, it's just ghost feeling. You don't really feel it. I'm like, Mommy F, I feel that. I feel it. I feel it. Don't tell me I don't feel it, because I feel it. And this guy was a real sweet guy, very, very nice guy. He literally, when I was laying there on the table in the emergency room, they called in him from special surgery, which was over in Lenox Hill, part of Manhattan, to St. Clair's was over in what's called Hell's Kitchen, the Chelsea Clinton area.
Yep.
He came over. He was the one that pulled my leg back down from the middle of my back and kind of set my pelvis as best. And they said he was the guy that saved your life. So he'd come in daily to check on me. And when I was in traction, when they moved me from ICU to my room, I'd be doing pull-ups on my traction bar. I'd be doing crunches. I had them bring weights. I'm doing curls. I'm doing triceps extensions, and I'm trying to work my abs. And he came in one day and he shut the door and he's like, look, you don't understand. You need to know you're never going to walk. You will not leave this hospital walking. You're going out of here in a wheelchair, and you're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. And you've got to get used to that. You need to start dealing with that right now, mentally and emotionally, and grasp that. If not, you're going to have a miserable life. You're going to get a nice lawsuit settlement from this, I'm sure. You take that money, you learn a new craft, but you're not going to. And I kept saying to him, I got to get better. I got to get out. They delayed the shooting of Quadrophenia. I want to be, Lords of Discipline. I want to be on that set. And he did that sort of, like a fatherly, trying to help me.
Sure.
Truly believe and say, you got to get, you got to grasp the reality in front of you. And he finished, and I just looked at him, didn't say anything. He's like, well. I said, you done? He said, yeah. I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. I will walk out of here. I will walk again, and I will have a life that is not in a wheelchair. Thank you for saving my life. Now get the F out of my room.
I got work to do.
And let me do my thing.
Wow.
And it took 2 years to be able to walk again. But I went to therapy every day. Then I was out. I remember living in Midtown Manhattan in the garment district once again, because we moved out of the apartment I told you with a heroin addict. Then I moved into Chelsea with another guy from school, and that got kind of weird. Oh, I'm out of here. Then I moved on to the West Village with my girlfriend, and then that kind of ended when I got run over.
Yeah.
So I went to my parents to convalesce, and I got to say, part of my recovery too, there was a woman, Mary Lou Coleman, that used to come over, a friend of my mother's, and pick me up every day and take me to the YMCA for my aquatic therapy. That I would go every day, on my crutches, get in the pool, make sure I knew I had to keep moving, just keep moving, don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
What was I going to say? Lost it. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Whoosh.
All right. Well, let's move away from that topic.
Next question.
Yeah, we got it. All right. So this one's for my dad because he always watches rerun television. I can't get him to watch anything new. So he's always watching classic shows. And his favorite is Andy Griffith, which you worked with on Matlock. I've heard you talk about him before, but this is for him. What was it like working with Andy Griffith? Was that a good experience? Yeah.
It was not a good experience at all. I mean, this is a guy you grew up with,
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, that's what he watches.
Like this great dad, and you thought, wow, he's going to be a great guy.
Yeah.
I think at the time, somewhat in his defense, he was old enough, and he had done, he'd done Mayberry RFD, and then he had the other show, and then he had Matlock.
Mm-hmm.
He just wanted to come in, do his lines, gone. He didn't want to. You were the guest star, and imagine, you're shooting an hour TV show. You got pretty long hours. You have very little life of your own. Yes, he's getting paid a lot of money, but still, he seemed like a very miserable, unhappy person. And as you can tell, I'm a very gregarious, buoyant, amenable kind of guy. Let's have fun.
Yep.
And he was just miserable. And he, when you asked for another take or could we, work on that a little bit? No, I'm good. Let's go. Yeah, I'm not asking for you. I'm asking for me. No, I'm good. Moving on. And he wouldn't even, they'd come in, typically on a movie, a TV show, they do the master shot. Mm-hmm. Then they'll do like a loose two, like we would do a loose two of you and Tracy. And then we'd pop in for your single and then for Tracy's single and then swing the camera around for my single. Well, Andy would never say you do the master, do the loose two, do his single, and then he's gone. Then the rest of the time, when you're filming, you're reading with the script supervisor.
Oh my gosh!
So you're not even reading with him.
Wow.
Whereas if working with, you can tell your dad, Raymond Burr, Perry Mason,
oh yeah,
he was a delight, wonderful guy. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Angela Lansbury, I would stretch canvas for her.
That's cool.
Very nice lady, very classy, very ingratiating, very sweet, very warm. Your dad may watch, what's his name, Gary Sinise.
Oh yeah.
Another former
Good.
Marine, just solid citizen, great guy, very gracious. Because a lot of these people, look, if you're the guy, you're learning new lines every night.
Mm-hmm.
There's other shit you got to deal. Then you got a kid that's doing this, your own child, or your wife is that, and it's not easy. Yes, you're getting paid a lot of money, but it's not easy. And then to show up and imagine they've got a whole new set of guest stars every week, and you get somebody like me, like, hey, hi, how are you? And to have guys like Angela, like Raymond, like Gary, they were very, very kind, very sweet people.
That's cool.
I just think Mr. Griffith wasn't so happy by the time I came around in his life.
Yeah, that's
Chuck Norris, there's another guy, great guy.
He's next on our list.
Yeah, Chuck Norris. There you go.
But he remembered your name, and he treated everybody. Kept, he was one of the producers of the show. You okay? You all right? Do you like your room? Do you like your trailer? Want some special food? He didn't have to do that,
Right. That's nice.
So since you mentioned Chuck Norris, I'll go to the next question here. It says, because you worked on shows like Knight Rider, Walker, Texas Ranger, and the Hoff and Chuck Norris. They're big names, and the popularity that they have is just unbelievable. Do you have any stories of working with those guys that come to mind that you want to share with us?
Not really, because you get into also when you're at that point as an actor, I had a business manager that stole about $1 million from me.
Oh, jeez.
Whoa.
Most of that money came from being run over by the truck,
Okay.
not from Hollywood. Okay. But that was money that I bought, used to leverage to buy a house.
Right.
Had 3 kids,
Yeah.
feed my kids. And we literally went from one day going, honey, where you want to go? Bahama, Barbados, Beirut, to we can't buy milk. So I had to work. I had to make sure I had to take whatever I could to make sure I could pay my mortgage, buy groceries. And look, no, it's my own fault. I should have watched my books better. I should have watched him better. I think anytime you play victim and go, well, look at what happened to me, then you're just going to be a victim. You've got to see what your role was in each and every situation, like the guy with the truck. You got to know what you did. And if you're presented with that situation again, what would you change to have the outcome be different? All right. So when doing those shows, a lot of times you're just trying to get, make sure you got enough money coming in. Get one of those a month, you're okay, but you're living,
paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, there's millions of people in our country that are struggling right now mightily to be able to keep food on their table. So in no way do I want to be disingenuous or disrespectful of those folks. It's very hard for everybody. So to remember who they were, unfortunately, Tracy, you remember more so people that were not nice, that were jerks.
Okay.
And I won't talk about them on air. It's not fair. They're not here to defend themselves. But there were plenty of folks that I could tell you the names of that you would know in an instant. I was like, dude, why are you being a jerk? I mean, really, we show up, we put on clothes, and we pretend we're somebody else. What's so hard about that?
Right.
And we get paid more money. If you're a regular on a series, you usually get paid more in a week than most people make in a year.
Yeah.
So shut the F up, be happy, get dressed, learn your lines, hit your mark, and just be nice.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, there's the door. Don't let it hit you in the butt. Anyway, moving on.
Last celebrity we want to talk about. By the way, when does your Lifetime movie air? Because everything you've said is like a script waiting to be written. Seriously.
I've had 3 times people approach and say, when I was a little bit younger, we want to do a TV movie about you. And I've had some people approach recently and say, we want to write your life story. We want to do a book. I may write a book, maybe, because there's some real interesting stuff. You've got a family show here, and there's other stuff that I'm not able to share in this format that we could share offline that is very colorful, just silly stuff you go through. but I always wondered. I always thought that's really egotistical to go. Look at me. I'm such a great guy. They're going to make a movie about me. So I didn't. I'm not. I'm the kind of guy that wants everybody to get along. Everybody's equal. We're all rowing the boat together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just always thought it was a little too self-aggrandizing,
So you did have one thing that caused me and Tracy to go, I wonder if this had any ill effects on your career. Not necessarily long term, but very short term. So you, and I did not see this. I'm going to put that out there, but you did pose for the cover of Playgirl. And, with Family Ties being a family show, did that cause a problem with all of that?
No. Do you know how many gay fans I have?
No, I don't.
Dude, the gay community has a lot of disposable income. Most of those gay couples don't have kids they have to pay for, all right?
That's true. That's true.
So, and when they go to the box office, their dollar is just as green as the heterosexual. So
that's right.
I welcome it with open arms. No, and what's great about doing that? If you look at the cover, it's a little weird because it must have been the early days of Photoshop. Mm-hmm. My left pectoral looks like it's a 48 triple D, and my right pectoral looks like it's a 38A. It's so disproportionate. I don't know what happened. But the great thing is I have 4 sons. Uh-huh. I've got the best sons in the world, man. The best. My boys, love my boys. But they're not boys anymore. They're young men. They're 22 to 34. I'm very proud to say my 22-year-old will graduate from UCLA this year.
Excellent.
And he got in on his own accord. Nobody was paid off. There were no lies. There were no fabricated photos. He's in a scholars program, and he maintains about a 3.8 GPA.
Nice.
My other son, I've got another son who's 12 years sober, knock on wood. He's got his master's degree. He graduated with almost a 4.0 GPA once he got his life together.
Awesome.
My other son in a scholars program, so they must not be my kids. Because I don't know where they got it from. And yes, I'm bragging. But with my sons, it was hilarious to have them, show friends, go, hey, look at my dad on Playgirl. Or Playgirl? Yeah, Playgirl. So it created a lot of opportunities for them to laugh at me. Not with me, at me. That's cool.
That's awesome.
That is cool. So about 20 years ago, you left Hollywood behind and became an investment banker. But you haven't totally left Hollywood behind, correct?
I love that. Brother, you have done your homework. Give me a hug. Give me a hug.
Nick and I share the research.
An investment banking firm. We've done a lot of work in the renewable and sustainable energy sector. That's why I want to talk to you about your engineering.
Okay.
We tried to get involved with a couple of mine deals and realized, we don't know anything about this. Let's get out of here. At least we still had our shirts on our backs. And I didn't want anything to do with Hollywood until about 5 years ago. I met a guy named Larry Meistrich. Larry started a company in New York, shooting gallery, back in the 90s. And when I started producing in the 90s, that was one of the preeminent independent production houses. Larry's first not his first film, but one that made a big splash was Sling Blade, that they made for about $800,000 and literally putting on credit cards and here to there. And the stories of him and Billy Bob Thornton. There's a great guy. Billy Bob Thornton, great guy.
Cool.
Great guy. Larry had another film, it's either You Can Count on Me or Stand By Me or whatever, Academy Award nominated as well. Mm-hmm. Larry's produced 144 films. Only 2 of them lost money. He's very smart. Grew up, single mom in the Bronx. Went to Johns Hopkins University. Is one of the only Jewish guys to ever play pro baseball. And he's just, a lot of people think, oh, he's mean. No, he's not. He's very straight, very forward. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. And I love him for that. So we are now business partners. We have an endeavor. It's going to be called Red Coral. It's Red Coral Entertainment. We will be launching our own OTT. Do you guys know what an OTT is?
No.
It's Netflix, for all intent and purposes, is an OTT. Pluto. Do you know the channel Pluto?
Yeah, Pluto TV. I've got it on the Roku.
That's an OTT.
Okay.
An OTT means over the top, and essentially what it is content that is made through a portal that is available either on broadcast, on television, on your computer, or on your handheld device.
Okay.
We will have other. When you go to our portal, red coral that grows in the sea, it kind of grows like a weed, and it has all these arms coming off of it. So off of that, we'll have shows that are sports-based entertainment. We've got some shows with the NFL. We've got some other shows that are based on the gaming world and role-playing anime. Guys that did Castles and Crusades.
Okay.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons. Castles and Crusades has sold 120 million. Rule books apparently in that world is what you measure success by, and they've sold over 120 million rule books. And there are other animators of that genre that want to work with us. We have other filmmakers that are independent filmmakers that want to work with us. The thing that, and I don't want to bemoan Netflix. I mean, they were the guys at the right time at the right place with the money. The business has gone from exhibition, which is a theater, to we all sit at home now and we watch on our computer or our phone or our 70-inch screen we have in the living room.
Right.
Netflix has dominated, but now they're getting nipped at the heels by Amazon and Apple. Those are the next big studios, but they don't tend to do what HBO did very well. HBO for years made quality show after quality show after quality show. HBO had 10 shows, 7 out of the 10 were just like you had to see. Netflix makes so much crap because they really don't have people in their upper echelon that know how to pick the right script, the right director, the right cinematographer. Chris Albrecht, when he ran HBO, was rather astute in those choices. So what has happened, folks in the independent world thought, oh, great, I can sell my film to Netflix, made my money, I'm good. But nobody can find it on Netflix. Netflix controls over 20,000 titles. When you sign into Netflix, they only show you about 400 to 500 titles. Wow. Their algorithm gives you just that. So there are all these films that are being made that may be very meaningful, because I think the independent world is the world that, once again, I'm going to go back to, I want to do stuff where here's the mirror, look at yourself, society, stuff that speaks that way. Nothing against these tentpole films, nothing against, Fantastic Four or the Avengers or but a lot of times they'll have fancy visual effects, fancy special effects, fancy sets, fancy cinematography, but there's no story. Or maybe there's one plot line, and it's so linear that there's nothing to root for. There's nobody that you really are invested in. Whereas if you remember, I mean, Tracy, you're young, Nick, so you would watch it, go to the video store and pick it up, the VHS when
Absolutely, yeah.
But movies like Godfather, movies like Serpico, movies like A Man Called Horse, movies like Dog Day Afternoon, I don't even know if they'd get made today. And if they got made, they'd be like, well, can we have another explosion? We're going to have aliens come down at some point. So we want to have Red Coral speak to the human element. We want to, which I will talk with you guys about later, we're going to have a channel that are podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts where this is, I remember growing up, it was Johnny Carson, then it was Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, then there were some meaningful things that you got out of those talk shows. It's become so prevalent. There's so many shows everywhere, you can't really separate what's what. But if we have a portal where people can go and see meaningful conversations, funny conversations, great conversations, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to deliver.
That's a great idea.
So it will be called Red Coral Universe. We're going to launch in March, and I'm going to call you guys up again to beg you to come back on your show and thump for Red Coral.
We can do it. No problem.
Yeah.
You're welcome here anytime.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Nick, thank you so much. Tracy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys, great guys, great questions. Good job. Did your homework. Way to go. Boom.
Boom. Fist bump.
All right. You guys take care.
Our thanks to Scott Valentine for joining us on the podcast this week. Tracy, do you have big Valentine's Day plans for your wife?
Yeah, I'll probably take her out to dinner.
Okay.
She knows I love her.
I hope. I don't know what I'm doing yet, and I certainly wouldn't say it here because it's still 2 days away. And wait a minute, my wife doesn't listen to the show anyway, so I probably could tell you. Follow us on social media. Instagram, we're at Fancounters Live. We're building a great fan base there, so come on over. Also on Facebook, search Fancounters. And you can also email us if you have any comments or questions. If you have a guest you want to see on the show, give us a hoot and a holler at hello@fancounters.com.
Who knows? Maybe somebody will come up with, somebody that neither one of us have ever discussed or interviewed or anything.
Very well could be.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. All right, come on back. Next Friday, we're here with another celebrity guest and our first video podcast. Well, the first one we taped.
You know what would be interesting is if people respond to us over email and notice the difference between the two podcasts. Because we did make some changes from the first one to the second one.
We did. We've changed some props. So
yes.
You have to let us know how that worked out. That's going to do it for us. Have a great week. We are back with another celebrity guest, so come on back.
See ya.
Bye.